Welcome back, everybody. We are cruising right along through Unit 6, and we are basically at the point where we're trying to make sure that all the features that we have are usable before we go building new features in the next section. And one of the things I was thinking about is that although we have logs in the back where we can see all the different things that happen, so if I come here to, we'll just go to the dashboard. If I come here to this, I can see that you searched for this person logged in, all that kind of stuff. I can see that stuff happening, but really, this is more of a back end thing that only the admin can see. If we were here and I search for Hoover and then view, I don't really have a particular way where I can see all the different transactions that had. Like, let's say I have a student came to me and said that they're complaining that their money is all messed up or something like that. So basically, what we could do, and we won't have the old data if we do this, but we can start coming through here. And if you look at the database and you go to PHP and then transaction types, we have two right now, and we're not even using the second one. But what if we were to come in here and say money added? What if we were to make a new one called money added to the account, basically? And so what we can do is we can come here to the transactions, and every time we add money, we could make this add into the account. And so now looking at this, we're doing the amount here as a positive. And we probably should have done that as a negative from the beginning. But I don't really see a problem with going back and doing that now, because if we come here to, let's see, we'd have to make a couple of changes. So the first thing we'd have to do is when we go to the snack shop, let's come here to snack shop code. Which, again, the snack shop is something that there's a ton of different ways that we can build that out into something cool. But let's see, snack shop. So right here, when we are updating the amount and putting it in the database, we are perfectly fine to take this and put parentheses around it and then say star -1. And so basically at this point, then what we could do is when we add something in there, we'll just go to the snack shop for a second. So give me 1 second. Okay, so we're at the snack shop, and then now if I come over here and I do $1 and I scan the green one because I know that has a lot of money on it. Oop, that did not work out well. I do $1 and I scan it here. Then Jenny was charged here. Now when we look at the database, we should see that this was a -1. So in fact, let's just go back here manually and change these transactions to -1 or negative. And it'll just take a second. There's not that many of them. So we're going to come in here. We're going to make these transactions negative. Now we could have written a little script to go through there and do each transaction for us. But there's no real reason to do that at this point. So there's only 8 of them. So, okay, so this is done. Now the next thing we need to do is when we go to the dashboard, when we come here, we'll see now that total sales is a negative number, and total sales are not a negative number. So what we want to do is we want to go to index.php, and let's do it up at the top. So total, this is our total sales right here. We're checking transaction equals 1. So what we would do, we don't want to, we can do it in the for each loop. Let's just do it right here, or outside the for each loop. So we want to make sure that we're outside of this loop. And then basically what we want to do is total equals total times -1. And so now we've saved it, and now we're going to basically take all those numbers and make them positive so that when we refresh the page, now the sales are right. So that wasn't really too hard. Now the next thing we need to do is when we add money to an account, we come in here and we do this, we go to view and we say add funds. Now on this page, we're not storing that in the transaction table. So what we need to do is we need to come over here to the student add funds page, and then you can see that right now we are logging that we added this money to the account, and that's good, and we're updating their balance, and that's good. But what we need to do now is we need to make a transaction in that table. So in fact, if we come here to the snack shop, we basically have the information that we need. So let's just copy this whole chunk right here. All right. So we come here and we copy this whole chunk, and let's see, student ID. So we're in the process of adding funds. So do we know the student ID? Let's see, we better know the student ID. So yeah, this is the student ID right here. So I guess we could just take this and get that chunk out. Done by, that's still the same. Now the amount that we're putting in now, so let's just, I'm going to make a little space here so you can see what's going on. So the amount that needs to go here is the amount that we're putting in. Like this whole new amount thing is just to store in the table. Like remember, we're storing their total in the database. So if we come in here and we take this thing, we don't need to do the amount times -1. We can just do the amount because this is going to be positive. So in other words, I'll show you in a second. And we'll come down here and we'll set transaction type equals 3, and we're going to update this up. So if you look at this, and if you picture this like an old school checkbook, I'm sure most of you have never used a checkbook, but if you come in here and look at the transaction table, give me a second to get that up there. All right, so we're back in PHP My Admin on the transactions table. Anytime you remove money from the account, it's going to be a negative. Anytime you're adding money, it's going to go into a different transaction type and be a positive. So what I think we should do at this point is let's start everything over. So what we can do when we're in MySQL, or sorry, when we're in PHP My Admin, we can go to operations. We haven't used this yet. And we can say empty the table, truncate. And so what this is going to do is this is going to get rid of all those things in the transaction table and set the new ID back to 1 so that, you know, we start over at 1. It's like the table is fresh. So the other thing we want to do is we want to go to students, and we have all these balances and things like that, and things wouldn't add up. Oh, let's think about that. So we're not putting the money in there when they're first created. So that's one more thing that we need to do. So let's take a look at that. So if we come here, we can see that we're on students.php when we create a new student. So we want to go take a look at students.php. Now, one thing to note here, we do have this new student form, and we're not really using that anymore. So I'm going to just come up here and I'm going to write die. This does not log the initial funds, like that. And what I'll do is I'll probably come back and update that one. But for now, what we want to do, we want to concentrate on our main one that's built in here. So we can close this. And then if we go to students.php, we can see that we're creating a student. Let's see here. So yeah, we're creating a student. This deserves to be full screen here. So this chunk of code is where we create our new student. So the form is being processed and all that stuff, and we have the balance, and you can see here where we're logging it. But what we're not doing is we're not putting it in that transaction table. So let's do this. Let's go to our, let's see, where we add money before is student add funds. So we're going to take this chunk of code right here, so we're in student add funds, and we're going to take this whole chunk right here. This is how we're adding transaction 3 to the transaction table. And so if we come over here to, I lost my other page. If we come here to students.php, then when we're in the process of adding a new student, we want to do this. So this is what's going to put the money in there, and this is what's going to tell us that, hey, we added some funds when the student first started. So let's start from the bottom up. Transaction type is 3, and so if we look at our database, you can see that transaction type 3 means that money was added to the account. And I'm going to take my time here because I really want you guys to understand what's going on. So we're adding the date created, and if you look back here, you can see, I won't keep snapping back and forth, but if you look back here, you can see that on these transactions, we're showing like what date the transaction happened and all that. So the amount, we didn't use the variable amount here. We used the variable balance because this is their initial balance. So we're going to go ahead and put that there. The user ID is fine because this is the logged in user ID. But the problem I see right now is this one. So if you think about it, if you have 5,000 users in your system and you add another one, you don't really know up front what the next user ID was going to be, because let's say you have 2 people on 2 computers and you don't know exactly which one's going to submit. Maybe you're in the process of filling out the form and they're in the process of filling out the form, and you just can't predict that somebody else isn't going to go in there and create a new student before you do. And so what you want to do is, instead of predicting, you want to know. And there's a little trick here. We're going to learn a new database trick here. When we make this transaction, we are inserting into the database a new student. And so this thing has a way of telling us, and basically anything that we do with the database here has a way of telling us what ID did we just insert. And so what you can do here is you can type student ID equals DB last ID, like this. And so this is not, and it's not just telling us the last database, like the highest number in the thing. It's telling us what was the last thing that you just submitted on your last DB insert. And so we're able to grab that, and then down here we can paste this in here and do and grab that. So basically, I just want to put student ID there. Something didn't look right. And then also, speaking of not looking right, that shouldn't be there. So let's bring this back up. So if we were to come in here and refresh the page now, or I'll drag this over. I have 2 windows open. So if I were to come in here and type, let's type in Orville, I don't know how to spell his name, Redenbacher. Then we'll give him $50, and his RFID will be 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, like Michael Jackson, and I insert, and let's see what happens. Now that might have been because I had refreshed the page a bunch of times, so let's try this again. Let's do Jim Johnny, and we're going to do $5 and ABC, like that. That's good. So now we submit that, great, and if we look in here to the database, we can see that his $5 went in. Now the question is, did it go into the transaction table? And it did. Student 20 just got $5 added to the transaction table. So we are going to do just a tiny bit of cleanup to finish this video, and then we're going to turn all this information into a valuable log. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to operations, and we want to go ahead and truncate this table. And so operations truncate. Now we don't really want to I guess it's totally up to you. This is on your side of the project. You can do whatever you want. You can either truncate this table, or if you want to have 20 students in there to play with, then what you can do is you can go to SQL and you can say, let's try this. I don't do this a lot. So you can do update students set balance equals 0, I think is how you do it. So basically what you're saying is go into the students table, and for every single row set the balance to 0. And so if I hit go and then I hit this, so every single person immediately has a 0 balance. And so now let's see, so Our transactions are empty, our students are empty, our logs still have some of the old logs, but that doesn't really matter. So now in the next video, we're actually going to make an accounting sheet so that all this information goes together in one place.